back, everyone. Interstellar travelers and psychonauts alike. It's the Starlog Podcast. I am your host, Jordan Hoffman. I am happy to be here. What a week. Last week was tremendous. We had Louis Leterrier, who was here promoting a movie, but also having a nice schmooze. He was promoting The Last House, which is a film that's available to stream on Netflix. And it's funny, that movie is about a family in their house, and then I think the scientific term is the shit hits the fan. Some crazy stuff happens. There's magic rain. They're trapped inside. There's sea monsters, and they go, what are we going to do? This week in theaters, there's a movie called The End of Oak Street about a family who wakes up when the shit hits the fan. And it's a little bit different. A trans-dimensional portal sends not just their house, but the whole neighborhood 65 million years in the past for some reason. And they have to deal with dinosaurs. And boy, do they ever. And I just saw it. Dave Gonzalez, Dave, the co-host of the Starlog Podcast and the producer, who's here with me as always every week, has not seen the film.
I have not seen the film. That's correct. Hello, Jordan.
I am therefore, in every measurement, better than you. I am a better person because I've seen this film. I win. No, you haven't seen it yet, but I predict that you will, because actually I enjoyed the heck out of it. I thought it was terrific. I really liked it. I will say this, and I knew this, but I forgot until I went in and saw the opening credits. This is a movie that is produced by J.J. Abrams. And it's when I saw the opening logo of his Bad Robot Company, I went, oh yeah, that's right. This is an Abrams production. Do you remember years ago he made a movie called Super 8 that was supposed to recapture all that wonderment of the Amblin films of the 80s?
I do.
And it didn't quite work. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. This is the movie Super 8 wanted to be. The end of Oak Street. It's really quite enjoyable. It had that Amblin look, and it had that. This is the corniest thing to say. It made me feel like a kid again, but it really was catering to me. The guy who wrote and directed it, David, 3 names, David Mitchell. What the hell is this guy's name? David Herman Mitchell Roberts. He's got 3 male names as his name. David Robert Mitchell. I knew he's got a lot of names. He's got like so many names, this guy. David Robert Mitchell. I looked him up. He's like the same age as me. Let's be honest. Not going to lie about my age. So he's Mr. Gen X. And it's set in 1982. And I'm looking at the toys on the little boy's cabinet there. I'm like, oh, I had that same exact Pac-Man thingamajig. Good, well done, well-sourced props there. Now, it really did have, it was for guys like me, is really fun, but also for gals also. The lead, the women are in charge. Mm-hmm. Anne Hathaway is the mom who saves the day time and again. Ewan McGregor and his curious American accent are in the film also. And the daughter is very nice. She's the science fiction nerd. She's talking about Carl Sagan. She's got a big 2001: A Space Odyssey poster in her room. She's when she's not being chased by dinosaurs, she's reading books about the Apollo moon landing. She's really cool. And I gotta say, it's about it's Land of the Lost. They're trapped in back in time. There's dinosaurs running around. It's shot really, really well. The music, Michael Giacchino, and just the way it's put together, the visual aspect of it, the action scenes are really quite good, and the dinosaurs look great. They got fur, they got feathers, even a little color. And Dave, I'm a new man because I've seen this film, and now I know what it's like when a mama brontosaurus and a daddy brontosaurus really love each other and they want to make a baby brontosaurus. I know how it happens, and I've seen it thanks to the magic of cinema. Not in IMAX, but in the regular screen, it was good enough. I got to say, for an August motion picture, it was pretty damn entertaining. The science of it was a little bit hand-wavium, but she at least name-dropped Carl Sagan, so I think points for that. Are you planning to see this movie? Are you going to get off your butt? Are you going to wait till streaming on this one?
I am interested in seeing this movie. I am not against seeing it in theaters if that is how the timing aligns. I do think this movie is squarely for people like you and me, though, because I was looking back at sort of like the history of dinosaurs in pop culture, and it's really like Gen X and millennials that reclaim them sort of as like a cool new action thing around like Jurassic Park.
Of course,
and the 1990 discovery of Sue the T-Rex sort of like kicking off this
I love Sue.
thing.
Have you seen the documentary about Sue? I forget. It's called Dinosaur 13, I think. It's pretty damn good. That's a good documentary.
Yeah. And so this idea of dinosaurs sort of having this big pop culture push were for the two generations, I think, represented by the parents in this movie, your Gen X Ewan McGregor and your elder millennial Anne Hathaway. And these are the people who are showing up. So do I love those performers? Absolutely. Am I here to dinosaurs? Yeah. Do I think that you don't need to hump to touch two cloacas together? Absolutely. But I can't wait to figure out how the movie tries to convince me that was narratively necessary, because the history of dinosaurs on cinema is actually the history of cinema, the more you like trace it back.
Wow. Okay. That's a bold statement. I mean, it's pretty damn enjoyable. I mean, I saw it not in a super crowded theater, but crowded enough. And there were it's PG-13. There were some kids there that had been brought in there that were probably not 13. And one of them was like scared out of their pants, which was great. It's a hard PG-13. There's a couple of sequences that are pretty intense. There's also some funny stuff. And Anne Hathaway's great. That's my one sort of like 80s thing, is that her hair does not look very 80s. She looks too modern. And I'm surprised not that I know that much about women's hairdos, but I remember what women looked like in 1982. They didn't look like Anne Hathaway, but everybody else is pretty damn good in it. And I definitely, I actually think it was actually one of the better movies of the summer. I may have liked it more than the recent Spider-Man. I know that offends you because you're really into Spider-Man. I liked the Spider-Man, but I thought it was really, like, I had a great time. Maybe because I had very low had no expectations. I just kind of went.
I think August sci-fi adventure movies, especially ones with dinosaurs, are absolutely going to be subjective to everybody in terms of like actual quality. But these are the types of movies we need. I am the type of person who, ever since the mid 2000s, as soon as Bad Robot puts something into production, I am the one at the message boards looking to see if it's another Cloverfield. So
right.
This
and there were some rumors about that.
Yes.
And it's not. I'm here to say it's not. I'm here to say that also, like, the look of it, there's a lot of there's like maybe one split diopter shot too many. Now, I don't know if these are true split diopters. I mean, I would imagine now with the special effects they have, do they actually have to do the old-fashioned way of covering half the lens and rewinding the film? I don't know.
Last week, Louis Leterrier was talking about how he used lenses from the 80s to shoot on film. So for all I know, those are real split diopter shots.
It's back, baby. Now, the one thing I will say, and Dave, this is a little bit of a spoiler zone. If you don't want to be spoiled, move ahead in the timeline 2.5 minutes. I don't want to spoil it for you either, but
I don't care about spoilers, Jordan. We'll get into this later. I don't think they're a real thing, but that's not something for the Starlog podcast. Please spoil me.
I'm going to ruin the ending of the movie. What they do is they get back. Our family gets back. They jump through a time dimensional shift or whatever, and it creates like a looping thing, right? Mm-hmm. So they go back like 25 minutes before the shit hits the fan, but it's only. Well, I'm really going to spoil everything. So Ewan McGregor dies in the past, saving the family, gets eaten by a T-Rex. It's horrifying. His leg gets eaten first. It's very scary. And then the rest of the family, plus this gal they pick up along the way, they go back in time. They go forward in time, but they're there just a little bit before the town disappeared. And they're like, oh, we can save Dad. And they come up with a way to save Dad. It's actually kind of clever. I got to give them credit on how they did it. They're able to save Dad by getting him out of the town because they themselves are like on the boundary of the town. They're looking over the valley. But they don't save the prime versions of themselves. There's another Anne Hathaway that is about to go back in time. But Anne Hathaway survives in what we're watching, but she only survived because at one point, Ewan McGregor saves her. So she's sending herself and her two kids back in time, and the equilibrium is off. They may not survive now, especially because when they get there, they're going to be sad. It's like, not only are we back in time, but dad isn't here. He left in the middle of the night. They're probably killing themselves. I feel like this movie, if I was in charge, if I was J.J. Abrams, the producer of this film, about to tell David Patrick Harris, or whatever his name is, he's got 3 names, Mitchell Harris, yes, you're going to make this movie, but here's my note. At the end, we've already had time travel. We've already had dinosaurs. Just make clones. Just have 2 Anne Hathaways running around. Everybody loves Anne Hathaway. Let's have 2 of her. I'd love to have a second Anne Hathaway. So that's my note. But that's also why I'm not running a big Hollywood studio. But nevertheless, I enjoyed The End of Oak Street. Thumbs up from me. Go see it. Dave, we talked about what's new in science fiction. What about what's new in science fact? Well, I came across an article, a very strange article that I've read now 3, maybe even 4 times to try and understand it. I understand 37% of this article. It's written by a woman named Michelle Starr, not Michelle Starlog. And the headline is, "Weird Loophole Could Finally Let Energy Move Faster Than the Speed of Light." Now, whenever I hear anything about faster than light, I get very excited because I remember where I was the day when I learned that warp speed is violating the laws of physics. It was very heartbroken. And I just assumed that one day the Starship Enterprise would go faster than light, and somebody had to set me down and say, look, Jordan, it's not going to happen. It violates everything that Einstein said. I'm like, what do you mean it didn't happen? They go faster than the speed of sound all the time. Mach 1, Mach 2. I've seen the right stuff. I remember I was alive when the Concorde was around. So was probably most people listening. And I was told sound and light are different. We're not going faster than light. So every time there's some sort of thing about potential of superluminal travel, I get very excited because I want to prove that guy wrong. Now, this article begins some truth. This reiterates what I just said. Some truths about the universe seem absolute. Entropy flows one way, gravity sucks, and nothing can outrun the speed of light. But a quirk of how sound waves interact in water may have just shown how something can appear to. The key word is appear. According to 2 researchers, interference between waves traveling along 2 different paths can make their combined energy peak appear sooner than the peak of a wave traveling directly from source to receiver. Again, the key word is appear. It works underwater with sound, which means that theoretically, at least, it could also work with waves of light in a vacuum. And then there's some quotes from the oceanographers that worked on this. They discovered, as with all these discoveries that we've been doing on these segments, it's always like we were studying something else and we stumbled across this, which is great. The research emerges from earlier work studying how sound behaves underwater, and it all starts with whales. So listen to this. Researchers studying whales calling to one another in the ocean can track down where a whale is by recording using multiple hydrophones. Basically, the timing of the signal arrival at each hydrophone allows signal triangulation. So far, this makes sense. But Spieshberger, who was the scientist behind this, and his colleagues have found that in some situations, this method can produce significant errors. In a 2025 paper, they elucidated a phenomenon that could explain why. If the whale was close enough to the surface, some of the sound of its call would travel directly to the hydrophone, while some would reflect off the underside of the water's surface. I got it so far. There's interference with water lapping around. I got it. If the 2 waves overlapped at the hydrophone, their interference would shift the peak of the received wave, making it appear to arrive later, that is, at a slower effective speed than the direct wave alone. Okay. The previous work showed that the interference could make sound appear to move more slowly, but when Spieshberger started looking at it differently, more realistic pulse shapes, he noticed something extraordinary, that under the right circumstances, the effect could work in the opposite direction. Okay. So what he's saying is that if there's interference with these waves, they could appear before they're actually there. Which means if you're going at the speed of sound, that's faster than the speed of sound. If you're going at the speed of light, they're going to be there faster. And then it goes on and on to talk about how they have been trying to set up some of these test cases. And it concludes basically, interference can shift the energy peak forward, but it can't create information at the receiver before that information has traveled there the old-fashioned way. So information is the key thing. You're sending something that can't get there before the speed of light yet. But the wave that's bringing it along, if you triangulate it and bounce it around and interfere with it, the energy can get there, according to these eggheads here. The next step is to experimentally try it, either with sound or with light, to see what happens. Classical physical effects are sometimes echoed in quantum mechanics, and it might be worth considering if the direct plus effect has analogies in the quantum world. And it says this research will appear in physical review at a later point. And I don't know. So they've come up with some concept, and they're testing out things with sound underwater before they start looking at light in a vacuum.
Yeah, it's based on like constructive interference. So like constructive interference is what happens with waves, where if two waves hit a peak at the same time, its energy doubles it, so it amplifies it. If we're talking about sound, makes it louder. What they're talking about is something that's being sent through water, direct line from whatever's emitting the sound all the way to the sensor, also has this bounce off thing that's going at the same speed that is bouncing off the bottom of the water. So there's a reflective thing. And if the angles are just right, like a pool ball, the wave will hit the other wave and push a little bit of energy forward, or a little bit of the wave forward. Just like if it were to hit it the wrong way, it would slow it down a little bit. But later on in the paper, there's a very detailed thing about sending information to a computer, and when the computer to decide if you're trying to describe a 0 or a 1 in terms of information. That is incapable of speeding up. If that goes faster than the speed of light, then we've broken relativity. But what could be cool is if this is happening on a, small sense of at the quantum level, where you could sort of pool ball these waves together and get some energy. What happens if you scale that up to the size of a universe? Can you pool ball some energy into a ship?
Or just scale it up to the size of the Starship Enterprise is what it is. How does this get us to Deneb 4 in time for the
if there's no information, there's like this weird, and this is where the fun science fiction thought comes into, because I'm not a scientist and I've read the same articles you have, but like we would get there and then our minds would get there just like a little bit after we technically got there, because the information and the acknowledgement of being there would technically be there. So like when we say information, that would be like matter, that would be like energy, that would be like heat, light. Something would be there taking up the space quantumly, and then the rest would fill it in.
This is very exciting to me.
What a fantastic world to live in.
And also, I would imagine if you have to get there early and rent a room, it's going to be cheaper because you're not actually there yet. So the other thing is this article then linked to something that was discovered in April, that 50 years ago, some scientists said that there were dark matter vortices inside of matter that could go superluminal because there's nothing in them. They don't exist. And somehow this was proven. They actually did this. They fired some photons, and the photons didn't go faster than light. Let's not get carried away. But the dark matter vortices within them, and there's a term. And I would just invite everybody to, if you think I'm making this all up, just Google what are these things called?
Look in the show notes of the podcast you are currently listening to.
Oh, okay. That's the best way.
Articles.
Yeah. I send these links to Dave and I say, I don't really understand this, but we should talk about it.
So it's what it is there's an angular momentum of the particles that are making the light, because light can exist both as a wave and a particle. But basically, as they're traveling through space, they're not shooting through space like a bullet. They're spiraling through space like a rifling bullet, I guess would be a better way to think about it. And because these are very tiny, they are technically spinning and creating a negative space of non-light inside of the light.
This is great because this week's guest is the science fiction author Andrea Hairston, and her new book is all about doing things that we can't do just yet, primarily trans-dimensional travel and multiverses. And there is cutting-edge science that if you like Dave says, go to the show notes. You can read about. It's not as far-fetched, at least on the quantum level, as you might think. So, that to me is very, very exciting. Optimize your deflector dish, because we have just entered the Starlog Archive. Dave, before we get to our interview with Andrea Hairston, which we did already, and it was awesome, and I can't wait to hear it again, I do want to say that I went back to an old issue of Starlog, as I always do, about the time of the release of the movie Superman, which came out in 1979.
Okay, so the 1979, so we have to put a date after it now, because there are two movies just called Superman, and one came out last year.
Right. Yes. This was the first Superman. And honestly, because I knew I was going to see The End of Oak Street, I wanted to look up some stuff about the original Land of the Lost. Mm-hmm. And I got sidetracked and ended up in the letters column once again. Because the letters column is where let me just get into it here. A letter from a fellow by the name of Robert K. Phelps of Arlington, Virginia. He writes, Superman sinks. I have just wasted $8 and $8 was a lot for a movie back then.
Sure,
Seems like a lot. I have just wasted $8 and 2 hours of time watching the new Superman film. The film is simply a botched up mess that is receiving too much publicity. That's the main argument here, is that the guy is reading too much Starlog is what it is. The special effects were well done, but the storyline is very weak. Well, that's open to debate. Many fine performers were put in the film so that their names could be used in advertising. For example, Glenn Ford, who does not appear long enough to allow him to develop the character of Jonathan Kent. So this guy's an angry Glenn Ford fan who didn't get enough Glenn Ford. It is true. Glenn Ford's in the movie for 2 seconds, and his name is very prominent at the beginning. And I would imagine that in places like Starlog and elsewhere, it was promoted quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. This is the same movie that has Marlon Brando show up for a few seconds. We're complaining about Mr. Ford.
Yes, right. He gets nothing about Brando being in and out, and of course being famously paid at the time. It was more money per minute than anything else in the history of Hollywood. But he continues, I feel that the public is being cheated out of its hard-earned money by a lot of phony publicity that oversells the product. The excellent special effects are useless without adequate story development. Well, I would argue that the story is good in the first Superman. So that's taste, personal taste. But it is true that there was a lot of brouhaha, and I guess this guy was sort of angry. But he's not alone. Paul Dornchez writes, I have just seen Superman the movie and thought you might like to hear one citizen's opinion on it. To me, it was a very good picture that would have been more so without all the advertising hype. So back then, I guess people were annoyed at pre-release shenanigans, and there was no internet yet to be bombarded with ads. It's amazing. All the publicity built up so much that you'd think it was the event of a lifetime, and it isn't. The main thing that bugs me is the effect of Superman's flying. On many occasions, you can easily see the matte line around him, and he never seems to be in synchronization with the background. Well, listen, pal, I think I disagree with that. I think
these are people who in 1979 say the word matte line, so we're already talking to a very specific group of people. We're at a specific nitpick that is like, well, we can see the matte line. I'm like, yes, because that is how post-processing worked. You'll believe a man can fly involves suspension of disbelief. Right, exactly. It doesn't involve like losing of your senses.
He didn't actually fly. Anyway, he goes on after reading all about the movie beforehand, I noticed things seemed to be missing. I read that Superman was supposed to wield the Golden Gate Bridge, weld the Golden Gate Bridge back together with his X-ray vision, and it's never shown. And wasn't he supposed to cook an omelet for Lois? Again, no show. And especially the scene in the train in which little Lois's parents are shown to be the original Superman, Kirk Allen, and Lois Lane, Noel Neill. Please tell me if they pulled a Steven Spielberg and cut scenes out at the last moment.
Steven Spielberg.
I don't know what that means.
I want to know what Steven Spielberg was famous for cutting out in 1970. Okay, two things.
Could be Close Encounters, the ending. He originally thought they were going to go in the ship and they didn't. But anyway,
that's a good point.
So anyway, that's what he says. He's angry at a normal person would never think that, but only a reader of Starlog, and yet he's angry at the ultimate result because I don't know. I mean, maybe he shouldn't have been feeding himself the publicity so much, but I love that he's angry about the lack of an omelet. That to me is wonderful.
The other mystery that might be time travel related is I cannot find a source that has a movie ticket anywhere close to $8. I'm sorry, my dude. It is like $3 or $4. You could go to a Manhattan movie theater for like $5.
Maybe he bought for someone. Maybe he bought for a date.
I've seen this movie 4 times. I've spent $8 on it. And let me tell you why this is bad.
Now, he probably bought a ticket, and then bought popcorn and snacks. And then, of course, he thought that he and the date were going to have a nice night, and she dissed him is what it is. So that's what he's really angry about. What about that omelet, huh?
I mean, they should. I can't wait for the cut omelet scene from the Richard Donner's restored Superman that Warner Brothers is going to have to put out because their sale is going to be held up in federal court for 2 years while the Ellisons lose billions of dollars. Can't wait for that to happen.
Good. Then this fellow will finally be happy. Let me just jump ahead to later in the same issue when Michael Catron, who actually was a pretty important dude in comics, and for a while ran, I believe the estate of the Schuster estate or something. He was there at the Superman premiere. Do you know where that was held?
The Superman premiere.
Somewhat topical today where it was held.
Somewhat?
Why would you? Yeah, I didn't know until I read this. So why would you know? It was held at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. Huh. Yeah. And do you know who was in the audience?
I don't know who attends Washington, D.C. events in 1979. I apologize.
No, well, but go big. The President of the United States, hey. Jimmy Carter, was there.
Jimmy Carter is there for Superman.
He was there, and apparently he watched the whole thing. So this article, which I won't get into too much except for 1 or 2 points, it's just surveying the scene of who was there, and a lot of movers and shakers. President Carter was there, Senator Edward Kennedy, Barbara Walters, Caroline Kennedy, Art Buchwald. I wonder if this is the only Art Buchwald mention in all of Starlog. And of course, Superman was there. Christopher Reeves, but also
Superman was there. His only public sighting,
right? And then suddenly, but he was there and Clark Kent was not. It was very weird. and then of course the producers and the directors and blah blah blah. But what was interesting to me was Margot Kidder was there and who she brought as her date. And there's a photo of the two of them with Richard Donner. It's Margot Kidder, Richard Donner, and Margot Kidder's date was, you'll never guess, so I'm just going to say who it is. Michael O'Donoghue, probably the darkest and most nasty of the early Saturday Night Live writers, who is in like a tuxedo with like an ascot around his neck in this photo. And there's a scene in the movie Manhattan, the Woody Allen movie Manhattan, where Michael O'Donoghue plays a party guest in a tuxedo and he's just saying vile things to Diane Keaton and whatnot. And this looks like, and this was around the same time. This is late 78. I think Manhattan came out 79. It just looks like a scene right out of that. It's just an amazing photograph. What a weird mishmash. Superman, Michael O'Donoghue, and Jimmy Carter celebrating the cinema, celebrating Krypton. What a time. And Starlog was there reporting, much to the chagrin of some of the readers, because they wrote in that there was too much publicity for this movie.
I hate knowing about movies about Superman. Yeah, man. Imagine, I'm sure because you and I have been in the film industry for a hot second now. Actually, you know what? There's a little movie called, a little TV series called Lanterns coming out. And yes. Jordan, you and I had major disagreements about the 2011 Green Lantern when it came out. And the
probably revisit that. Probably revisit that at some point. I have not watched it since. But.
I love Starlog as a window back into this very influential film, both for Richard Donner and for superhero cinema and for visual effects. And immediately there's some people just didn't like it.
Immediately hated it. I mean, most of the audience for that film was just blown away by the majesty of those flying scenes, but not this guy.
One guy's like, "There's no eggs. What the hell? I bought it I paid $8 for this egg ticket.
Where are my eggs? And why isn't there enough Glenn Ford?" Beaming in from, I'm assuming, somewhere up there in Massachusetts.
I'm in Florence, Massachusetts, which is a small section of Northampton. But it has its own zip code, and it's like it's called Florence because there was a silk mill here, and the person who had that silk mill, really loved Italy. So that's why we were Florence, Mass. And also Sojourner Truth lived here and worked at that silk mill. So there's a statue to her here. And, it's a great place. You can do a historic walk in Florence, and there are trees that are, 400 years old that were here when all the stuff that was happening was happening.
And Massachusetts College Towns plays a big part in a new book called The Redemption Center is Closed on Sunday, a book that I naturally love because one of the major characters is a podcaster. So clearly it is speaking directly to me.
Yes.
The Redemption Center is Closed on Sunday is the 8th novel, if I have that right, the 8th novel written by our guest, Andrea Hairston. I'm speaking with, and I love this title, Andrea. Andrea Hairston is the Louise Wolff Kahn, 1931 Professor Emerita of Theater and Africana Studies at Smith College. That is a title and a half.
Yes, and I earned it. Years of hard work.
Let me ask you, who is Louise Wolff Kahn?
Well, she was the class of 1931 at Smith, and her family, she gave a lot of money to Smith for interdisciplinary work. So there's a Kahn Institute at Smith that hosts interdisciplinary symposia that are short or a semester or a year long or a weekend. And the idea of the Kahn Institute is to bring together people from different disciplines and to get them to shake each other up. And so my named professorship was for an interdisciplinary professor who liked to bring different, disciplines and get them to challenge one another and come up with something new. So, I was like the second professor who had that
title.
Yeah.
Well, it makes a lot of sense for two reasons. You mentioned all this interdisciplinary study because your new book, Redemption Center is Closed on Sunday, is a lot of like mixing of styles, mixing of ideas, mixing of people. It's like a giant blender of a novel. And then also, the woman's last name is Kahn, and one of your characters wears a Star Trek watch.
Of course. So, of course.
So there's a little bit of Star Trek in that, and we are, of course, Starlog, and we're obsessed with
I love Star Trek. So I'm a big fan of the Starlog. I'm old, so I remember the old Starlog. I met Isaac Asimov once, at a Star Trek convention, and I didn't know who he was. I sat down next to this older gentleman, and we were talking about physics because I was once a physics major, and we were just going off, and I'm like, wow, who is this dude? I mean, my Lord, woo! So we were just chatting and laughing, and people were coming by looking at us like, and I was like waving at them because I'm basically friendly. Oh, hey, hi. And I was, do you know all these people? Isn't this fun? Don't you love coming to Star Trek conventions? This is my second, I was just like completely, woo! And then someone came up and said, oh, and they said his name, and I was like, oh. And he said, I knew you didn't know who I was. He said, and that was really enjoyable.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So I'm a big Star Trek
You've been an old school Star Trek fan.
Yes. And but I just kept going on the journey all the way.
That's terrific. It's fun. You jumped the gun a little bit because you mentioned that you're before you were a professor of theater and Africana studies and writing novels and writing plays, you worked in the sciences, which I find very interesting. So I got to ask you about this because I know you have a mathematics and physics background. And when I think about mathematics and physics, I'm thinking about things that are very, very precise, things that have to be a certain way. The numbers have to lock in.
Right.
In physics, the ball has to hit off the wall and go into the place it's supposed to go. And your most recent book, and I mean this as a compliment, is not that. Your book is about very messy people, about very playful ideas, and it kind of goes all over the place. And then also it goes nowhere for a while. Like there's a bus ride that lasts about 80 pages. I mean, I don't know how long that bus ride is, but they're on that bus for a long time. So this to me is a great yin and yang of your early career, which is 2 + 2 = 4, and now, which is numbers can do anything. So tell me about that.
Okay, so I actually think that, classical physics is very, very, specific, but non-classical physics is very messy. And so so Einstein, shifted us away from the notion of a clockwork, deterministic world, even if he was kicking and screaming. Right. The implicate reality is beyond, our capacity to write it out in a, easy linear fashion. I like all kinds of physics, including messy physics and fuzzy math, which came out, I don't know, I can't remember quite when that was big.
Remember that phrase?
Yeah, fuzzy math. So that was one of, and I'm a big fan of algebra. So, and algebra right now is having a hard time given AI, applied statistics, I'm not going to talk about that. But what I do like about, I'm putting that to the side, but what I do like about algebra, it's the unknown from the known, right? And so you start with what you know, and then there's so much you don't know, and you try to figure out how much you can map. And so for me, that's what I'm working on right now. Because I feel like one of our problems is we think that the whole universe is actually knowable. And I think that's one of our errors. It's, I think we approach knowing it, like we can get close to it. But, the idea that there's a little dot that's an electron, that's the best we can do, but it doesn't really operate like a little dot. It's much more than that. And there's so much that we can't know. Like we can't know, for instance, if we know how fast it's going, we can't quite know where it is. Right. And
the Heisenberg uncertainty principle.
Hello. Right. Yeah. So that's, that's the 20th century, early 20th century, in conflict with, like Newton, we were like, if we have A, we can get to wherever. And actually, we might not, and to be okay with that as we search for knowledge in a very systematic, nutsy boltsy, detailed way is my main character, Paula, is definitely one of those people who's going to try to put it all together. But there are things that might be that we can't contain in the particular language that we have discovered or created and try to use on it. So we have to invent other ways of seeing, other ways of investigating the universe. And that to me was what a lot of 20th century science is about, how to get to things that we thought we were going to know and that we can't know. And then to be okay that we don't need to know that part of it, but we'll know all of this other stuff about it and be able to kind of, hang in uncertainty.
The new book, Redemption Center, is closed on Sunday, is a book of many things. It's a murder mystery.
Yep.
It's a love story.
Yep.
It is a somewhat sarcastic look at a college town with love, but there is some sarcasm there.
Yep.
And then, of course, it is a dimensional bending, multi-universe hopping exploration of the mind and the unknown and other realities, which is so it's a big mishmash. But it wouldn't mean a damn thing if it didn't have really rich characters, really good, rich characters. So I was hoping that we could talk about some of the characters one by one that might entice people to, the minute they're done walking their dog, listening to the show, to go to the bookstore and buy this book. So first I want to ask you about Paula, who basically is, I would imagine she's pretty much the main character. It's a real ensemble.
It's an ensemble book, but she's the pivotal.
Yeah.
Unless, besides Una, who we'll talk about later.
We'll get to Una as a surprise at the end, yes.
Yes. So, Paula, I have a friend who's a mathematician who's named Paula, who acted in plays. And she did what I thought I was going to do. She did singing and dancing and acting in theater. And she acted in one of my early plays, which was a murder mystery. And in it, the cleaning lady was the hero in that play. And so, I went, oh my God, I have to like get back to that character. Or, I didn't read the play. I just thought of Paula and her acting, and people were upset at the time when I wrote it in the early 70s, because they wanted me to write a character who had, 5 degrees, spoke 10 languages, and then, was an African-American woman, and then solved the murder. And I had a, kind of an ordinary, regular person who was a cleaning lady, and she solved the murder. And also.
So that's the inspiration for the new Paula in the book.
That's a new Paula. And also Paula's a nerd, Yeah. So I wanted to have a nerd, and, Paula she's a nerd. She's, I wouldn't say neurodivergent, but she's heading that way. She doesn't feel like everybody else. And she's a nerd, so she loves nerdy things. And
she's in her head a lot, but also she's very funny and self-aware of her foibles, if you will. But
right.
It makes her very, very sympathetic and very funny. And then sort of the balance to her is Anquinique, who I guess is kind of my. Let's put it this way: when it was an Anquinique chapter, I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna get good because she's very funny. And she's the podcaster also, so I like that. Yes. But she's just a very, very entertaining singular person. So tell the listeners what makes her tick a little.
So I taught at Smith, so I knew many upper class Black women, who had like all kinds of wonderful possibilities. I love them too, and then people will like get irritable with upper class Black women because they should be down with the folks, and so I really wanted to create that. Who is curious about the world and then is a journalist, Yeah. So for me, I mean, when I was younger, the character would have been a journalist, right? Would have gone into like writing for a newspaper. But I went, no, we're in the 21st century. What would Anquinique and what would she be good at? And she would be good at, drawing people out and having conversation. And she's kind of a nerd too, but she doesn't think she's a nerd. But she's a perfect nerd to talk to people. And she can listen, because that's a really amazing skill. She can listen and then engage. And so I wanted to have that person. So she has friends. She's got friends everywhere. She can listen, talk to people. Yeah. And some of them, she doesn't necessarily like a whole lot. But you never know, because she's that person who values whatever you might say. Right.
And what also was funny is that she also is in her head a little bit because she realizes she's having feelings for Paula.
Yes.
And she's like, oh, my God, I'm the rich lady in love with the help. And that's a cliche, so I can't do it. But she's like, no, but I really like her. And I think she might like me. And it becomes a whole like.
Yes.
They're both driving themselves crazy. Like, we can't do the relationship, but we should. Right.
Paula doesn't think. I'm not worthy of this. No one will love me. And Anquinique is like, oh my God, aren't those cliche British dramas about, I can't do that. I have to do something else. So both of them, I find them both endearing, and I just use my own foibles too. I have to admit, like stuff you make up in your mind that's not going on. And if you just ask someone, you might find out that they're going through similar, but you're afraid to. Yeah. So I wanted to sort of have fun with people finding a way to express to each other what both of them know. They already know.
Yeah.
And it is a British
it's a cliche.
Classic.
Yeah. She's cleaning the house, and she's the help, and she's probably looking cute in an outfit.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So on the side of this, you have Zuzu, or Zu. I don't know how she's pronounced. Zuzu.
Yeah.
Who is I guess sort of I don't even know how to describe her, but she's the extra element you need before this adventure can start. You could tell us a little bit about, because she's a disabled woman, half German, older than everybody else, and very at ease with weird things should happen. That's okay with her.
Yeah. So Zuzu, I think I wanted to do, or characters happen to me, so they kind of like wheel into my mind. So she came into my mind. I'm like, okay, you're in the story. And I think her attitude is, she's like slightly removed from everything. She keeps her distance. So weird stuff happens, and she's just like, she's like, well, I don't know, if this were a movie, I'd be afraid, I'm like, I'm afraid, girl, but you're like, if this were a movie, I should be afraid. So, and she doesn't want to, be stuck in a box, and people are always sticking her in a box. And so she's a little grumpy, but she doesn't try to be nice. And I think, she and Una have a special relationship, and she's the one who can go places that other people can't go. I'll just, boldly go.
Boldly go. Places. So you mentioned the fourth character that I wanted to bring up, which definitely is a spin on thing. Una, who's a very perceptive individual and is aware, this is a murder mystery and is aware of is able to put the pieces together quickly. But the issue is Una is a dog.
Yes.
And we do go into the dog's head, and we learn a lot about the sense of smell.
Yep.
But it is unusual when you're reading this and they start talking about a dog. Oh, there's a dog there. And then you get to like chapter 6 or whatever it is. And it's from Una's point of view. And I'm like, this is the dog. And the dog is an interdimensional traveler.
Yes.
So that's kind of the hook, I suppose, of the book that might get people to say yes. So tell me a little bit about what kind of dog is it, first of all?
It's a Saint Berdoodle, which is a Saint Bernard and Poodle mix.
Oh.
And those are really big dogs. And they're very, every breed is as diverse within the breed as between breeds. But that said, I just read an article about how Saint Bernards are unbelievable in terms of finding people. And they're still doing that, over in Switzerland, so they have all the right stuff and they are relentless. So they will look for you until they find you.
This is the one in the old cartoons that would have like a little whiskey barrel around their neck.
Yes.
And they would like rescue Bugs Bunny or Woody Woodpecker or whatever
and
it was.
They live to find.
Okay.
Cool. So that I wanted to put in. And you might find that in another dog, but you would more likely find it among.
Yeah.
The other thing is poodles are really, really smart, right? Saint Bernards are often considered smart as, say, poodles or German shepherds or border collies. But poodles are like super smart. So, people thought, oh, let's mix them, get a super smart, search and rescue. Or you could get other things. But, my dog is one of those kind. And again, relentless. So I wanted to have, a relentless dog. And the word hound, comes from the fact that dogs will hound you. They're called hounds for a reason. They hound their prey, right? Yeah. I mean, they really do. They run until you just say, okay, eat me. And I love dogs. I don't own a dog, but I thank all the dogs that have been in my life. And so all the dog behavior is to a degree based on the dogs I know and all the research I've done on dogs. And dogs, capacity for understanding. And making decisions, like how do they decide what they're going to do? And all of those things, are important to me. Franz de Waal, who was a animal cognition scientist, did a lot of research on morality, emotion, and intelligence. And some of his students have done dogs. So I thank them in the book too.
Yeah.
Research.
The thing about Una is, apart from the singular fact that Una can travel through dimensions, everything else about her is pretty much like dogs that we know. Like there's not other than that one special power,
right?
Which for all we know, maybe dogs can do that. We don't know. But other than that one magic power, she doesn't have any other weird sci-fi magic power. She's just a regular dog. But in the book, you begin to kind of understand dog sentience. I mean, you get in her head, and dogs, I mean, we always joke. I mean, my wife and I have a cat, and sometimes we joke, like, what if we just woke up one day and our cat's name is Saru? So could you imagine if Saru could talk? And like, that's a dream. Saru could never talk, but Saru can think. She's got a brain. It's not the same brain as ours.
Right,
exactly. Saru knows what time it is. She knows when it's lunchtime.
Yeah.
So it's not crazy. It's not like, I don't know. It's not that sci-fi to get inside of an animal's head.
Yeah. Well, for me, this is where science, so like I said, I thank all the animal cognition people. So dogs are, we co-evolved with dogs. I say that rather than we domesticated them because it gives us all the power and them none. They were really helpful. Like a women who created the bow could shoot something, the dog could run and get it.
Nice.
Right? Before and so dogs often prefer, to a slight degree, prefer women. And so some people argue that women are crucial for this early coevolution. The dogs could also watch the babies while I'm out there like doing all my stuff. And men are throwing spears, so that, that's like, whereas women can pull the bow and get as far. And wherever you have dogs and people flourish and dogs flourish. Right? So this to me is like a perfect thing. And they have to be able to communicate. Dogs are by nature, pack animals. So, and that means they're social. That means they communicate with one another because they coordinate a hunt. Like if you watch wolves, you're like, oh, they're talking somehow. And I don't know how.
Right.
And they can really do all kinds of things. I'm like, how did they figure out how to do that? Or, they like herd animals into like a place where there's a nasty, cliff and the animals fall down and die and then they go get them. They do things like that.
There are parts of nature that, like, I don't know. Woo! There's nothing more mesmerizing than like a bird murmuration. There's nothing more sci-fi than that. I can watch video of that all day.
Okay, and you see them move. Right, and also crows, which my book too. Crows and dogs have crows and wolves, and therefore crows and dogs have a long-term connection. So they will play with one another. They will, the crows will warn when a bear is coming, so the wolves eat really fast and get as much food as possible before the bear comes and chases them away. So I'm fascinated by all that, and it's only I can just put that in the book because that does seem magical to me. It's just scientific, but it seems magical. And the dimension thing is like all those dogs that you like drive away from somewhere, and you drop them off in the middle of nowhere, and they can get back home.
That's true. You do hear those stories. Follow the owner from California to Texas. And
how got there. What are they doing? So that literally was my thought. I just had read about a dog who found its way home, the middle of nowhere, and they hadn't been from there to home. Right. In other words, they got lost in a place they'd never been and got.
Right. Well, they went to the Redemption Center, which is what we now know. So the Redemption Center, which is not the recycling center, because in a very funny way, there is also a recycling center in your book just to keep people on their toes, to get yourself leveled up or whatever it's called. The Redemption Center is the central metaphor, which is it's like a state park somewhere, and if you get lost and you go somewhere where your watches won't work anymore, which reminded me a lot. Have you seen the movie Picnic at Hanging Rock, the old Australian movie?
Yes.
That reminded me of that. That was really cool. So if you go there and your GPS will stop working, and there's a lot of GPS talk in this, which I thought was very interesting. You get there, you get lost, and you find yourself at this like old mansion with an old sundial. And Dave, do you remember here's an SAT quiz. What's the thingamajig on the sundial that causes the shade? What's that thing called?
Oh no. The upward pointing.
Oh.
It's called the gnomon.
Yeah, I don't know how to say that word.
I think it's gnomon. I don't know. The word gnomon. Wait, Andrea, the word gnomon is in your book 400,000 times.
I know, but I don't know how to say it because it's a word I have seen. More than I can't remember anyone saying, "Wow, the gnomon over there is really,
Well, when I first read the word gnomon, I knew intuitively. I'm like, oh, that's the thingy. That's the triangle thing. They're like, let me double check. And I got out my phone. I'm like, what is a gnomon? It's like, yeah, it's the thingy on the sundial. Well, anyway, so that the space in this book is where the Grand Central Station of the multiverse is.
Yes.
And it's in a state park when you get lost. And it's something that is very very spookily written, and it's very emotional at times. And I'm wondering for you, Andrea, like, are there places that you've been to in your life, in real life, where you've said, oh, this spot is humming. Like, I feel something here, whether it's a state park, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's just a street corner.
Mount Desert Island in Maine. It's a national park, and I bicycle there, and there are places that are, you get to the place and you've biked and you've gone through trails and around and I really, you feel almost lost. And the trees, well, the crows, the trees, everything seems to be vibrating with some energy, and I don't know what's going on here. And then there's just like the ruin of a house because part of it burned. There was a big fire on the island, and so you can see like the ruins and like a chimney and the rock wall and the stuff. And I'm like, oh my God! And there's no one else, and I'm there alone. And really, I could be lost. I mean, I am. And there is no GPS. Like your phone does not work in the middle of, it's like, no service,
right.
No service, no. So it's really interesting to be in a place with no service.
Yeah.
And then people come and say, to me, asking me, how to get back to, this has all happened. How to get back to, and I kind of know, right? I'm like, oh, well, and the sun is up high so that you can't really tell. But I go, the ocean has to be to I say something like that, so like, and they're like, okay, yeah, but the road goes like this, down. And I'm like, I don't, how do we get there? How do we get there? And they have these maps that don't quite work. Like I look at the map and I'm like, this map was from 10 years ago, like a physical map.
Right. Yeah. Maybe it's because you write a lot in this book about the over-reliance on Google Maps and GPS, and it is a problem. And like physical maps, when I was a kid, I was really good at maps. Like my dad was like, son, I'm going to teach you how to read a map. And now I'm just like, duh. And it's kind of a funny
my dad
thing
too.
Well, you have a great line. You have a great line in the book that I wrote down. And this is not just about no GPS. This is a philosophical question. How do you find where you are on a map if you don't know where you are?
Right.
Whoa. That's heavy shit, man. That's heavy shit.
Well, the reason I wrote that is partly I do worry because the brain is very, I have to find a better word than plastic, but plastic is the word that, neuroscientists use. So the brain will do whatever you ask it to do.
Yeah.
And so when we were younger and we were doing maps, okay, I'll do maps. When we stopped doing maps, okay, I don't do maps. But the thing that you use to do maps, you use for everything.
Right.
It's not like you have a sort of like a dedicated, every part of the brain is dedicated to this task. No, it's a purpose device. So instead of having one thing that maps and one thing that solves problems, you have one thing that maps solves problems, right?
Yeah.
And so mapping helps you solve problems, and solving problems helps you. And so for me, since I know neuroscience is one of I love cognition, including ours, right? So, I, feel that, and this isn't to be, I'm proud to be a Luddite. So, but, because I think Luddites were like, what technology do I need?
Yeah.
Right. So I want a GPS when I can't do my mapping, right? I don't want a GPS that replaces my ability to map. And those are two slightly different things. So I want technology that aids me in having a brain that can solve problems, not that makes me atrophy, my general capacity to solve problems.
The other sort of line that I wrote down again, and I'm being a little facetious when I go, whoa, it's heavy, but like I meant it. It was legitimately like, it's such a simple concept. She says, notice what you're not noticing. Yeah. It's like, there you go. Like, that's a very, like, how do you, like, if I could figure that one out, I think I'd really be in good shape if I could notice what I'm not noticing. So.
Well, what I like about science fiction or fantasy or speculative or any of it is that it makes me notice what I haven't noticed. Somebody else's, like, that's why I like to read it. Suddenly I'm aware of, right, you could look at it that way, and I hadn't. So, what I really love is it makes me aware of the frame that I have narrowed down an infinite universe to this little teeny weeny thing. And it pushes me out of all of that so that I can, start to notice what I don't notice. So once I've read someone's book, I go out in the world and I see the world for a moment. It fades, but not completely, but for a moment. Or, when I see a film and I walk out of the film and I'm still in the film, but I'm out of it. And particularly that happens with science fiction and fantasy. I'm suddenly aware of, oh my God. And I love that feeling. It's also a feeling I get when I come back from being like the Met too, because those people noticed what I did. Those artists were like, "Oh goodness, oh my gosh!" You know?
Right.
So,
As a writer, when you come up with a line that's such a slam dunk, like "notice what you're not noticing," how are you feeling? Like, do you stand up and be like, do a pump, or are you just in the moment so much you don't realize how how good it is until later? Later you find,
it's an improv. I'm all the characters and the the narrative, and so I'm writing as fast as I can to get it all. Because improv to me is really valuable because it's of the moment, and then as an editor or director, I have to shape the improv. And so while I'm having it, I'm in it. Later, I'll go, wow, that one's good. Oh, well, that one, if we edit it a little bit, it could be almost as good as that other one, so that I like to be in flow and get it all down. And then the director, after I walk away from it, comes back, and that's, another character of myself. And then I can appreciate it and think that one's pretty good.
No, there's a lot of sort of like big tent camaraderie in this book. I've mentioned time and again sort of the sarcastic look at some of the college people, but ultimately they're good people, and they become part of the story of solving this mystery. And then it's a string of murders, and one of the women who's being mourned, you kind of find out about halfway through, is like not the greatest person in the world.
Right.
Like you kind of drop a bomb as that she's like a MAGA Trump supporter. And you're like, whoa, that's not really what I would thought. But in a way that's kind of cool because she's still accepted by the community. People just don't listen to that part. When she's on a rant, they just leave her alone, but she's still a good person. She serves coffee at the place. I thought that was a very interesting, an unexpected twist, one of many unexpected twists in the book.
I know those people. Right. I live in a college town.
Yeah.
Somebody's serving me coffee, drops one of those things, and I'm like, whoa. Or the people down the street who run the whatever, and I'm in their store, and I go, I believe in local. And they go, yes, we believe in local.
Yeah.
So, we have places where we connect. And then, and I don't have to throw you away completely. I'm not talking about, there's a group that I'm not talking about. But
right, hardcore. Yeah. The woman who was one of the victims is like a benign occasional, a person in life that occasionally will say something and be like, ugh, there she goes again. But is basically good, but not always so good.
And that's true of everyone though.
For sure.
Even the characters whose political values might align with mine, then, they're off. I mean, Zuzu, I think I totally align with her political values, but she, every once in a while, I'm like, wow, that's what you're saying. Okay. Because I feel like, it's, that's who we are. No one has corner on truth.
Yeah.
And I want to respect that. And then there are demonic people, and I'm like, okay, I can't quite get to you, but everybody else I can get to.
Well, those are the ones killing people in the story.
Right.
One last thing about it, I did find that after reading the phrase several times and kind of hearing it in my head, the group of kind of the erstwhile do-gooders are called the Change Gang.
Yes.
And you say it fast enough and it sounds like Chain Gang.
Yes.
That's not, that's intentional, right?
Yes,
That was, okay, all right.
Yes.
I kind of, after a while, I kind of like, all right.
It's a thing, if you say it out loud, I was like, oh, okay. And, so it's an Easter egg that it's in there if someone happens to notice it, but I meant that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's just one of the many little joys that you'll find in this book. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to speaking with us today. I really, really appreciate it. The book is a lot of fun. It's available everywhere, every bookstore, and of course online if you want to go to bookshop.org or Barnes & Noble, or even if you must, Amazon.com, fine. But you can get it anywhere. And you should. And if you're going on an airplane, you will read it, and you won't want the plane to land. You'll want to stay in the air because you want to keep reading. So that's what's going to happen if you do that. So thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, folks, that's another episode of the Starlog Podcast in the time capsule. We shoot it off into deep space. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Jordan Hoffman. You can reach me at jordan@starlog.com. Dave Gonzalez, of course, is here as always. Dave@starlog.com. You can email him if you choose to. You can follow us on social media, on Blue Sky, on YouTube, and all the others. And thanks again also to Mike Tritter for recording our theme, the Starlog Podcast theme. Thank you, most of all, to Andrea Hairston for that awesome discussion and window into her work. Next week's going to be just as cool. We've got a terrific filmmaker by the name of Rodney Asher. You may know his work, A Glitch in the Matrix, Room 237, other weird things on the internet floating around. We're going to talk to him next week, so we'll see you then.